Okay.
I think a lot of people get hung up, Allison, on thinking there's a zillion things going on. There is not.
Okay.
So when it comes to option contracts, there's only two: calls and puts.
Yep.
And contracts exist outside the securities industry, right? You and I have a contract. You did an opening purchase. You established the choice to have an hour of tutoring on a Sunday. And for that, you paid a premium. I haven't figured out how to do this, Allison, but my family sometimes says, you know, those people on Saturdays and Sundays should be paying extra. You know, I go, why don't you guys mind your own business? You know, I don't have a key. I did an opening sale. I received your premium, so I'm obliged. If I didn't want to be obliged, I shouldn't have collected your money.
Yep.
So in our contracts, there's going to be somebody who pays the consideration, somebody who receives the consideration. So since we have two types of contracts, calls and puts, and you can either buy them or sell them, we have four basic option positions. I call this the options matrix. Please note, this is not a box with four squares. Every one of these boxes or quadrants somehow relates to another quadrant. You know, sometimes I tell people what you should do when you get to the exam site is tape a sheet of paper, fold it in four, and then in each of these quadrants to kind of roll this thing out. I say, hey, what can you tell me about a long call? If you had this matrix memorized, you could say, Dean, when you buy a call contract, you paid a premium. You have a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. XP means strike price. You're bullish. Your max gain is unlimited. Your max loss is the premium. Your break even is strike price plus premium. You may not have any idea what you just said, but it's correct. And so here, as I said, the most important thing is to know the choices we're going to encounter on the exam. And so we could expect to see that, well, let me get a different color here. We could expect to see this as choice A.
Long call, long put.
They say, you know, which of the following gives an investor a choice to buy the stock at the strike price? Or which of the following is a bullish position? You know, that kind of thing. Now, as we said, every contract has its opposite. There's always two parties to contracts: somebody who's paid the consideration, somebody who's received the consideration. Now, I don't know if it's helpful, but I think of somebody who sells an option as a potential victim. And nobody would agree to be a potential victim unless you gave them some kind of money. So I said, wait, can you tell me about a short call? You say, Dean, when you're short a call, you've received the premium. You have an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. You wouldn't want to sell the stock unless you thought it was going down. The max gain is the premium. The max loss, very testable, is unlimited. If you agree to sell stock you don't own. So there's two versions of this. There's a covered call where you're agreeing to sell stock you do own, and a naked or uncovered call where you're agreeing to sell stock you don't own. So in this answer set, we're working on an answer set here, A, B, C, D. In this answer set, only one of these subjects an investor to unlimited risk. So they might say on the exam, which of the following, A, B, C, D, exposes a customer to unlimited loss? And you would say a short call.
Short call. Okay.
That's right. As we said, we have two types of contracts: calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. And so if I say which option position gives you a choice to sell the stock, you would say a long put. Now, there's a lot of words that we're going to be going over, but you know, here it's a choice to sell the stock, and you wouldn't want to sell the stock unless you were bearish. Your break even is strike price minus premium. So if you only remember two things about options, the thing to remember is call up, put down. Call up, put down. The break even in call contracts is strike price plus premium. And the break even in put contracts is strike price less premium. So if you say, hey, Dean, you know, what's going on here? I say, well, let's look at an Apple 190 call. If we look at an Apple 190 call at 7, your break even would be 197 call up. And it'd be the same break even whether you were long or short. What would be the distinction is where do you want Apple to be in relationship to that? You know, if you buy the Apple call, as we said, you're bullish and you want it above that. And if you sell the Apple call, you're bearish. You want it below that. Now, in a long put, if you're establishing the choice to sell Apple, then you are a bear. And so let's say you pay 7 points to establish the choice to sell Apple at 190. Well, then it would be put down. So a great memory aid device is call up, put down. Call up, put down. Call up, strike price plus premium. Put down, strike price less premium. And
Did they
again,
ask a question to like calculate it?
not really on the SIE. On the SIE, it's mainly these contract specifications.
It's just like,
And
do you understand it?
yeah, that's right. You know, and boom, there's our answer set. There's our complete answer set. And that is the biggest thing. The biggest thing as it relates to this is this answer set. Knowing that you have 2 types of contracts, calls and puts.
Mhm.
You can either buy them or sell them. So you have 4 basic option positions. The other thing I told you that's very testable is that only one of these positions subjects an investor to unlimited risk.
And that's a short call.
Right on.
Is
Right,
that,
that's very much.
and that's just because
You're going to have to go in the open market. I say, Allison, if you sell an Apple 190 call, you're going to be obliged to deliver 100 shares of Apple at 190 at expiration. And if you don't have that in your account, we're going to have to go in the open market and buy the Apple. There's a finite supply of Apple stock, potential infinite demand. So if we get this wrong, we're going to be in serious trouble.
got it.
Right. So that's why. So again,
That could
it's
be a problem.
mainly for your SIE, mainly definitions. And here we go, right? Here's our 2 parties. Now, it has a lot to do with learning the vocabulary. So we
Okay.
said when you go long, you paid a premium. You either have a choice to buy or a choice to sell. Right? And the choice you have depends on the type of contract. Now, we said there are 2 types of contracts, but there's a lot of language that we can use. I say, what does it mean, Allison, to say you're long an option contract? You say, Dean, that means I have a choice and I paid the premium. I go, great. I say, Allison, what does it mean to say you're long an option? You say, it means you're the buyer. I said, well, what does that mean? You say, that means you're the owner. I said, what does that mean? You mean a holder? I said, well, Allison, we're in a mental cul-de-sac. Those words don't get you anywhere. So when you hear the word long, buyer, owner, holder, you've got to get to the word choice. And if you get to the word choice, then you got a 50-50 because you either have a choice to call the stock away
Mhm.
or you have a choice to put the stock. You did
Okay.
an opening purchase. That's very testable. Let's say which of the types of orders would be used to establish or add to a long position. You know, you told me you had your fiance.
Yep.
So have some fun with your fiance. Say, hey, you know, I need to go to establish another tutoring hour, Dean. I got to go do another opening purchase. Right? That's how you're establishing your choice is by paying the premium. We said contracts even outside of the securities industry have 2 parties, somebody who's paying the consideration, somebody who's received the consideration. Right? So when I wake up in the morning, I told you I'm demented. I'm getting my family more oriented toward this. And I said, hey, I'm short an hour of tutoring today. You know, I go, what do you mean? I go, well, 11 a.m., I have an obligation. And the reason I have an obligation is because I received the premium. Now,
Mhm.
again, if I say, Allison, what does it mean to say you're short an option contract? And you say, I received the premium and I have an obligation. Wonderful. But if I say, what does it mean you're short? And you say seller, I go, well, Allison, that doesn't get us anywhere. Short seller. What's that mean? You go, writer. I go, that doesn't get us anywhere. When you hear the word short seller writer, what you got to get to is that you are a potential victim. You have an obligation. Then you have a 50-50, right? Because you either have an obligation to let somebody call the stock away from you, or you have an obligation to let somebody put the stock to you, right? You either have an obligation to sell the stock, short call, or an obligation to buy the stock, short put. You're a put E. And again, nobody's going to be agreed to be a potential victim unless you give them some money. Very testable. They're going to say, which of the following types of orders would be used to establish or add to a short position? And you would say an opening sale, right? So that would be an A B choice. Now, as we said, there are two types of contracts, calls and puts. So the two parties to a call contract is somebody who's long the call and somebody who is short the call. Those are our two parties. So somebody who's paid the premium and has a choice. Now, some people like to use the word RIGHT instead of the word choice, and it doesn't matter because on the test, they're not going to say your customer has a RIGHT or is going to say your customer has a choice. You have to bring that to the question yourself when you hear the word long.
So long is
Owner,
choice,
holder,
short.
yeah, you got to be able to kind of translate that phraseology. And I think it makes sense, right? Because options are choices. That's what, I have a lot of options, a lot of choices. I've been joking, Allison, I'm building this off-grid kind of compound thing here. And, I was, again, using this vocabulary. I said, when I started this thing, I only had one choice of who to do business with because I'm new and this is the only guy I know. But as I come out here more now, I feel better because I have more choices about who I can do business with, right?
Yeah.
So I have more opportunities to, do business with who I choose to than, the guy I'm stuck with, right? Anyways, here it says choice to buy the stock at the strike price. Short call, again, they're not going to say your customer has an obligation. So what you got to do is when you hear the word short, seller, writer, you got to say, okay, that's an obligation. It's either an obligation to let somebody call the stock away, an obligation to sell the stock, if it's a call contract, or it could be a put contract. Now, as I said, let me just do this here. I said our main thing, particularly on the SIE, that I want people to kind of get a handle on is this idea of the answer set. So let's call that choice A. Let's call this choice B. We said there's two types of contracts, calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. And so we have four basic option positions. So now we'll call this choice C and choice D. And if I say, what does it mean to say you're long a put? And you say, Dean, you paid the premium. You have a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. That's called contract specifications. I say, Allison, wonderful. But if you say, Dean, it means holder. I go, what's that mean? You say owner. I say, what does that mean? You say opening purchase. I say, Allison, you're in the mental cul-de-sac. When you hear the word long, owner, holder, buyer, opening purchase, you're the one who has to get to the word choice.
So the
That's
answer
something.
choice could be choice.
No, you have to bring that. You need to be able to look at a long put and know it's a choice. You have to be
And a
able to
long
look at a
call is a
short put.
choice.
A long call is a choice, but they are choices to do different things. One is a choice to call the stock away. One is a choice to put the stock. One is a choice to buy the stock. One is a choice to sell the stock. Those are two types of contracts, calls and puts. I say, Allison, what do you want to be able to do? Do you want to be able to buy the stock at a set price? Well, let's buy a call. Do you want to have a choice to sell the stock at a set price? Let's buy a put. Choices cost money. Then a short put, and remember, you receive the premium. Anytime you receive money, you're a potential victim. All right, what I'd like to do is share with you an analogy based on option contracts. As I said, option contracts do exist outside of the securities industry. And so, Allison, there was a sports car that wasn't existed yet. It was coming out, and they were saying it would be available in maybe 24 months or so. Anyways, I went to the car dealer and I said, hey, listen, I'd like to give you $3,000. I'd like to pay you $3,000. And for this $3,000, what I want to have is a choice to call away from you, a choice to buy the first one of those cars off the boat from Japan on a when issued basis. And he said, well, Dean, the manufacturer suggested retail price is 24. I said, well, if I thought you would sell that car to me for 24, I wouldn't be offering you $3,000 right now. He says, okay. I said, listen, if I can buy it from 24, I'm not going to exercise the call contract. I do want something in written form from him. Car dealer agreed to sell said vehicle for $25,000 in consideration of the three. And, when I was walking the car dealer through this transaction, he said, well, what's my max gain? I said, your max gain is that I don't make you deliver the car and you keep the premium. It's kind of like an insurance company, right? I don't file a claim and they keep the money. Several weeks later, he calls me. He says, Dean, the car is here and I want to talk to you. I'm in San Francisco. He's in Long Beach. I fly down there. He said, Dean, I just had an offer for 32. I'd like to buy back that contract from you. I said, no, unfortunately, I don't want to. I want to exercise my contract. I want to call it away from you. So I paid $25 for the car, $3,000 for the premium. So I'm out 28. That's my break even. Now, in our time together and on your SIE and on the Series 7, the underlying interest isn't going to be an automobile. It's going to be a stock. But that's an example of a call contract. I was leasing a high-end automobile, and the car dealer told me that at the end of the lease, this car is going to be worth $60,000. I said, really? You and I have opposite expectations about the value of the car. He goes, well, where are you going with this? I said, well, listen, we could structure a bet. How about I give you $4,000 to be able to put or sell the car to you at the end of the lease for $60,000. I would like to have a choice to sell at 60 for $4,000. He goes, okay. I'm going to give him the premium. I'm going to get a written contract from him. He will buy this car at the end lease. He goes, well, Dean, what's the best case scenario for me? I said, the best case scenario for you is that I don't make you perform on the contract. If I can sell the car in the auto trader for 70 or 80 at the end of the lease, I'm not going to stick it to you. Now, let's say that at the end of the lease, he's sitting on his lot and that car is worth $40,000. And he said, I wonder if Dean is going to show up today and stick it to me. The answer is yes. I'm going to show up and say, hey, remember that contract we wrote? I'm exercising. Where's my $60,000? He says, Dean, you're making me pay $60,000 for a car that's only worth 40. I go, yes. If you didn't want to do that, you shouldn't have collected the premium. He says, I'm going to lose $20,000. They go, no, you're not. Remember, I gave you the $4,000 up front, so you're going to lose 16. He goes, man, you're so good at my loss. I said, well, the reason I'm so good at your loss is it's my gain. So the big takeaway here is that option contracts exist outside the securities industry. And whenever you buy an option contract, the worst case is you lose your premium. So pretty easy to qualify somebody who wants to buy a call or a put. I say, Allison, is this money you can afford to lose? For everybody, that is a different number, right? I joke Friday nights in Vegas. A lot of times I'll go gambling, and I always think, how different is this than our business? There's no compliance whatsoever. They don't ask people about how much they can afford to lose.
Yeah.
Or, now, in the big takeaway too is that when you collect money, the best case is you keep it. You agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes you, and you keep the money. That's as good as it's going to get. So again, I'm not calling this a box with 4 squares. I'm telling you that these quadrants have a relationship to each other. Boom. All right, we're talking about contract specifications, and here's an example of an option contract. So 1 is the number of contracts. Each contract governs 100 shares. That's called the multiplier. Now remember, there's 2 parties to this contract. So somebody has a choice in regards to 100 shares. Somebody's a potential victim on 100 shares
Okay.
because somebody bought it, somebody sold it. Apple is the underlying interest, the thing we're betting on, right? I got a horse right here. His name is Paul Revere. Can do. Not a song about a guy who owns a horse. It's a song about a guy who is betting on a horse. Guaranteed test question. I don't know of any draw on the SIE in which you're not going to get asked, when do options expire? I joke, if you miss that question, you should flunk immediately. Your seat should just shoot you into the ceiling. And they say, how did you miss that? So a lot of the
Right
option
answer, yeah.
questions are aim and shoot, point and click. So I am in control of the 100 shares of Apple at any time between now and December, or I'm a potential victim at any time between now and December, because equity options test question are American style, meaning they can be exercised anytime. And they expire at 11:59 Eastern time, third Friday of the expiry month. That's the a test question. The strike or exercise price, and we said there's two types of contracts. This is a call contract. Now, we got to be careful when we're being asked about the contract or the players. Those are different questions, right? So I told you I'm getting my off-grid location here, and I'm moving some of my things from Vegas to here. And the next thing I think I'll probably bring out is my chessboard. I have a chess table with, you sit down and have a cocktail and play a game of chess. And I am assuming, Alice, I'm going to have to teach people out here to play chess. I might, who knows, maybe there's a grandmaster that's on the 840 acres next to me. I'm not thinking that's the case. And so, if I'm going to say, hey, why don't you come over and have an adult beverage and we'll play a game of chess? And he says, Dean, I don't know how to play. I said, not a problem. I'll teach you. And first thing we got to do is talk about how the pieces move around the board. You say, hey, how does the game end? I say, Alan, the game of chess ends with either checkmate or stalemate. Either both kings are alive or one of the kings is dead at the end of this game. And then you say, is that good news or bad news? I say, Allison, that's a different question. It's a different question about whether you win, lose, or draw. In checkmate, that would be either win or loser, depending on whether the king is dead. So you got to kind of be careful about on the test being asked about the contracts versus the players. So this discussion on the next slide is not about a player. This discussion is about the relationship of the strike price to the market price. Now, one time I was teaching a guy to play chess, and he said, Dean, every time I offer to trade you, you take it. And I said, well, there's two reasons I take it, because, call it hubris on my part. I think I'm a better chess player, so it's an advantage to me to have less pieces on the board. And the other thing I don't think I taught you yet, and time for another lesson, is point values in chess. And almost always you're offering me a value of a pawn that's a point for a bishop that is 3. And so let me teach you the point. So you'll know that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I will take it every time unless I think you're tricking me. If I was playing some grandmaster or something, he offered me what looks like a good trade, I'd go, I'm not so sure about that. I've actually seen grandmasters lose games to a chess program because they think that the computer is seeing something they're not. So here what we're looking for is the relationship of the market price of Apple to the strike price of the Apple. Now, you will on your SIE typically get a question about intrinsic value.
Yeah.
And where most people get this below this is, again, they start trying to do break evens and gains and losses, and that's not what they're being asked. So I always say RTFQ. So in the money is when the contract has intrinsic value, and we're going to be looking at calls and puts. And again, we have a great memory aid device: call up, put down. At the money is when the market price and strike price are the same. And out of the money is, again, when it has no intrinsic value. And again, we're not talking about players here. We're talking about the relationship. So here we go. Boom. So intrinsic value, or in the money, is when the market price of the stock is above the strike price of the call. So that's what we're looking at. We're going to look at calls first, then we're going to look at puts. As I said, we have a great memory aid device for options. Call up, put down. Call up, put down. There's two ways to answer this question. Call up if the market price is up from the strike price. The contract has intrinsic value. Another way we can do this is to say, is the contract likely to be exercised? Is it likely somebody wants to call the stock away? All right, so now let's try it with Apple. Let's say on the test, I tell you that this is a 170 option Apple call contract, and Apple is at 172. We said there's two ways to do this. Call up. The market price, NP, is above the strike price. The contract has intrinsic value.
So you would call up.
Well, we don't know you. We're not talking about you. We're not talking about a player. I'm simply asking, does an Apple 170 call with the stock at 172 have intrinsic value? The answer is yes. Is that good news or bad news or break even? That's a different question. That has nothing to do with answering this question. Does an Apple 170 call with Apple at 172 have intrinsic value? The answer is yes. Call up. Now, another way, is it likely somebody wants to buy Apple from a long perspective at 170 when Apple's at 172? The answer is yes. If we answer that framing question, yes, the contract has intrinsic value. We said the other relationship that we get tested on, mainly it's always going to be intrinsic value and it's yes, but is this relationship of at the money. At the money is when the strike price and the market price are the same. XP is notation for strike price. NP is notation for market price. And so we're looking at an Apple 170 call, and Apple's at 170. The option contract is at the money. Now, be careful. I'm being a jerk. Is that good news or bad news? It depends. You can't answer that question.
Depends
you
on
can't answer that unless I tell you you're long or short and give you the premium. So you got to be careful about whether you're just being asked about the relationship of the market price to the strike price and whether you're being asked about a player, somebody who is either long or short the call. That's a different thing, right? All right. So here, out of the money. Out of the money. So out of the money is when the market price is lower than the strike price. There's no such thing as negative intrinsic value. But right now, if Apple's at 167 and it's a 170 call contract, it is out of the money. You know, some people are visual. And so here is a visual representation. There's our strike price. Do you remember our great mnemonic device? Call up, put down. Call up, put down. If we're looking at an Apple 170 call and the market price is above the strike price, the contract is in the money, has intrinsic value. Warning, I'm being a jerk. Is that good news or bad news? You say it depends. I can't tell you that, Dean. All I can tell you is whether it has intrinsic value. Now, one concept.
If it has intrinsic value, if it has intrinsic value, it's in the money.
That's right. Those are synonymous terms.
If it's at the money, it's the same as the stock price.
That's right.
Drop the strike and the stock. Okay.
Yeah.
And then out of the money, it's the market price is lower.
That's right.
Okay.
So let's just try it. I'll just give you a price of Apple.
Okay.
Is the 170 call in or out of the money?
It's in.
Right on.
It's out. It's at the money.
Yeah. Is that good news or bad news?
We don't know. No.
Yeah, we don't know. But we also have put contracts. If you only remember one thing about options, what should you remember?
Call up, put down.
Right on. So that's a great memory aid device. It's going to be the opposite relationship. And that's what we're being asked about, is that relationship. We're not being asked if it's good news or bad news, just that relationship.
Oh,
By the way,
strike price is lower.
yeah, on your exam, by the way, on the SIE, typically on debrief, what I get back is people get asked about the intrinsic value of a put. Just for, doesn't mean, listen, every draw is different. So, you don't want to be trying to focus on a particular draw, but, for what it's worth, right? Anyways, put down. So another way we said we can do this is a framing question. Is the contract likely to be exercised? Is it likely somebody wants to sell at 170 when the apple's at 167? The answer is yes. If the market price is down from the strike price, the contract has intrinsic value. If the market price is down from the strike price. So in this example, we have 3 points of intrinsic value. It's in the money, 3 points. In the money, intrinsic value are synonymous terms. We said another relationship we have is at the money. That's when the strike price and the market price are what?
The same.
And then we have out of the money. Out of the money is when there is no value. And again, some people are visual, and there's their visual representation of this. So let's now give you some prices of Apple, and you tell me in, out, or out of the money. So let's say Apple's at 176. Is a 170 put, out of the money, at the money, or in the money?
You said 170?
176.
It's in.
Out of the money.
Oh, it's
The
out of
market price is not down from the strike price. The market price is not down from the strike price. It is not likely somebody wants to sell Apple at 170 when Apple's at 176. For this to have intrinsic value,
It needs to be lower.
that's right. So let's try it again.
Got it.
Give you another one. Apple's at 171.
It's still out.
Good job. 170.
It's at the money.
Right on. There you go. Apple's at 163. Or, but by the way, it doesn't matter what I put there as long as it's
In.
How many points in the money, playa?
7.
There you go. Right now you sound like a playa. 7 points. Now, when you buy or sell options, the premium you pay consists of 2 components. So if we're shopping around for our Apple calls or puts, with the things we're going to be looking for in terms of the premium we're going to pay or receive are intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is way, way more important than time value. But the premium that we pay or receive consists of 2 components. It consists of the intrinsic value, as you see here on the top of my slide, plus the time value equals the premium. So wrong thing there, boom. The intrinsic value plus the time value equals the premium.
Could they ask us to do this on the test?
Yeah, as I mentioned on your SIE,
Not so much.
yeah, what they ask is this: the intrinsic value, right? But
what are some questions you've seen for the intrinsic value one?
Just point blank what I just showed you in the previous slide, right?
Got it.
Right, where I just showed you. Let me just go back, right? I give you a price and ask you which of the following is true. And then you tell me based on that what it looks like. However, I'm not saying it's not. They're allowed to ask you this. And so here, if we're looking at, I'll play broker, I say, right now we can get a 170 call contract, Allison, for 9. And Apple right now is at 172. And so we're paying 2 points for the intrinsic value. We're paying 7 points in time value. And what we're hoping, Allison, is that we can turn the time value into intrinsic value. Because when you buy an option, you got to be right about 3 things. Here, if it's a 170 put, there's no intrinsic value. So I say, Allison, we're paying 9 in time value just to be able to play between now and expiration in December. Now, again, it's not a big deal on your SIE, but it does kind of make sense that a choice to buy at a lower price is always going to have a greater premium, right? Because a choice to buy Apple 165 is more desirable than 170. It also makes sense that a choice to sell a higher strike would have a greater premium as well. Again, more of an issue when you get into your 7 than your SIE. Now, leaps are a definitional question. You don't need to know the stands for long-term equity appreciation potential security, but these are long-term option contracts that go out technically 39 months, in practice 30 months. Wow. And so I say, gee, Allison, you want me to be a potential victim for 30 months? Wow. I'm going to want some big money, right? All right. A good mnemonic device to remember is T. T. What can happen to an option contract? I'm not asking again, what can happen to a customer? Customers can make money, can lose money, they can break even. Not what I'm asking. I'm asking what can happen to an Apple 170 call contract. That contract can be traded. That contract can be exercised. That contract can expire. So, Allison, if I give you a time clock question, it's not as likely on SIE 7, but I say several weeks later at expiration. And so you can do an offsetting transaction. What I mean by that is if you bought the option, you can sell it. Exercise. You can, if you're long, can exercise the contract. And if the contract at expiration has no intrinsic value, it will expire. So these are the 3 things that can happen to an option contract. Good way to remember it is T. All right, we're getting closer to be able to open an account and trade options. As I mentioned, we've been kind of talking about how the pieces move around the board. We haven't actually said, hey, Alice, you ready to play a game? You know, well, I think so. Okay, you got it down now. The horsies jump over the pieces, and these are castles, and they can do this, and, you know, off we go to the races. Here, before you trade options, very testable. We have to give you the OCC disclosure document. Very testable.
Yeah, I think I got it on this.
Yeah, this is very testable. And that is published by the Options Clearing Corporation. It's called The Characteristics and Risks of Options. No good news in this thing. This is all the bad things that can happen to you. It's 100+ pages.
Before trade.
Yep. There's no way you can read this while I wait. So I say, Allison, I'm going to go back and see if my ROP will approve your account.
Register principal.
That on series 4, right? From that, the sequence is very testable. My manager is going to say, my ROP, did you give her the OCC disclosure document? I had better say yes. And my principal says, okay, I will approve Allison to do covered calls. Covered calls. So there's different levels of approval. And, you know, that's going to be one of our lower levels of approval. I call you back and I say, hey, good news. I got your account approved. Now we can do our first trade. So after we get the account approved, we can do our first trade. I say, Alice, I need back from you within 15 days the option agreement that you read that booklet and you understood it. I think a good way to remember this is with the memory aid data 15, right? So the 15th day has come and gone. The 15th day has come and gone. I call you and I say, Allison, where is the option agreement? You know, oh, Dean, I'm sorry, man. It's ripped from the bottom of my desk. I'm getting to it. But hey, in the meantime, buy me some NVIDIA call contracts. I say, Allison, no can do. If late, you're only going to be allowed to do closing transactions. Very testable. It means you can get rid of the stuff you got. You can't implement any new transactions. No new transactions.
So you can, if you go back there, you can do a trade, but if within that first 15 days, if that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
agreement is signed, you can't
yeah.
move forward and you can just sell
If you're
out of it.
late,
Okay.
let's lose my casino analogy, right? My casino analogy, they give me this gambling disclosure document. They say, Dean, you can't read this while we wait. Let's see if the pit boss will approve you to play this evening. He says, Dean, on a preliminary basis, I'm going to approve you. And then they say, Dean, you have 15 days to get back the gambling agreement to us, so you understand the house rules and all that kind of stuff. And then, I come in on the 16th day, I haven't done the agreement. And I say, well, gee, I still have some chips. They go, Dean, you can play the chips you got, but you can't what? Get any more until you get back to us the gambling agreement that you understood, what's going on. So,
Got it.
right. This again is an ABCD format, and it's very testable. And they're going to ask you on the test, what type of order you would use in the following situation.
So opening, closing,
Right.
orders.
So if I
And
say on the test,
okay.
which of the following orders would be used to establish or add to a short position, you would say choice D.
Oh my
That's how
God.
you start
I
an
don't think I,
opening sale,
yeah.
right? That's an opening sale. I was teasing you, right? You did today an opening purchase. You established a long position for an hour of tutoring. Your opening purchase was Dean's opening sale. For you, that's money out. And for me, it's money what?
And
I might call you and say, hey, Allison, you bought an hour of tutoring for $225. But it's not speaking to me. Can I buy back that hour from you? I'll give you $300 to give me back that hour. So, whoop, right? You make $75 for doing nothing, right?
mhm.
Or in this case, you've exercised your contract. If I say on the test, which of the following orders would be used to establish or add to a long position, you'd say an opening purchase. And then again, the offset would be, right? Offset. Use eliminate, reduce, or offset a long position, eliminate or offset a short position. I like this answer set so much that I pulled it. This is from the FinRI SIE practice exam.
A transaction in which a writer covers a position by purchasing an option is called a transaction in which a writer covers a position by purchasing an option.
So transaction covers. So are you coming to the game or going home?
Um, going home.
That's right. So that means closing.
Going home is closing. Okay. So yeah, I was between B and D.
Yeah, it's a closing purchase, right?
Okay.
Very much a test. It's not so much this particular question. It's not so much this particular question. And it's all about, I told you that SIE exam I wrote that I'm going to send you a link to, is I really just focused on that exam on the answer sets, not so much the questions, because to be honest with you, it could be, depending on the question, it could be any of these. And so what we're trying to get comfortable with is what are the answer sets. People say, hey, Dean, do you know what's on the test? I go, no, I don't know on the test, but I do know the answer sets.
Yeah.
And
And if
depending
you
on the
understand
question.
the answer set, then you're able to get the answer.
That's right. Right.
That makes sense.
Right on. Okay. So now, boom. This needs to be updated. And since I'm already doing this with you, let me get rid of that. I got to clean this up. Where is there we go. All right. So here I say that the regulatory settlement on the actual exercise is T+2, but we've actually now live in a T+1 world. There is no longer T+2. It is now T+1 for everything. So in theory, life should be easier because you don't have to make any distinction. All securities regulatory settlement now is T+1.
Well, a long call.
Yeah. So here I'm asking what happens.
Right?
So we got a couple test questions here as well.
Yeah.
So let's go through our test questions here. We do need to know, test question, that the OCC is the issuer and guarantor of all options. On the test, they'll say, who is the issuer and guarantor of all options? Well, And that's the Options Clearing Corporation. Now, what does that mean in plain English? You say, Dean, how do I know that if I exercise, somebody's going to deliver the stock to me? And I said, well, Allison, how do they know you're going to deliver the money? What you're asking me about is counterparty risk. And you don't have counterparty risk because the OCC is the issuer and guarantor of all options. I use this analogy again in Vegas. My friends will tell me they've made a bet with their local bookie. And if they get all 9 games right, they're going to win $10 million from their bookie. I said, well, I hate to rain on your parade, but does your local bookie at the bar have $10 million to pay you? Why don't you come out and see me in Vegas? Because in Vegas, we have a gaming commission. And if you make a bet and you win, you take that money ticket to the cage, you know you're going to get paid. So test question, they'll say on your exam, who is the issuer and guarantor of all option contracts? You would say the OCC. They stand in the middle between the people who are long or short. Now, if you're long a call and you exercise, Allison, as a margin clerk, I'm going to say, where's your money? Where's your money? Right? If you have an Apple 170 call and you exercise, you need $17,000. If you are get exercised on a short call, you're going to have to deliver the stock. And there's one or two things. Either the stock is already in your account, a covered call, or you're going to have to go in the open market and buy the stock. Right? So in a short call, you're going to have to sell the stock. So you have to deliver the stock. You know, what we're trying to say here is if you're long the call, you need money. And if you're short the call, you need the stock. If you're long a put and you exercised, that means you need the stock, right? Because you're going to stick it to somebody. And if you're short a put, you need the money to pay for the stock. The only one of these test question that has unlimited loss potential
Is
is
a
the short.
short call.
Right on. Right. Again, I think almost always we kind of want to think of all of these slides in the form of answer sets. You know, if I didn't think it would freak people out, you know what? One thing I do like about tutoring sometimes is, I get to kind of play around a little bit. And what I mean by that is I think the better way to think about this is in the form of an answer set. Looks like it's going to take me a little more work than I thought. I was going to change that 1, 2, 3, 4 to A, B, C, D, right? Because that's how that would be. Now, there are 2 styles of exercise, very testable. American style and European style. As we said, most of your SIE questions, as it relates to options, are recognition. And so we need to know that American style means the option can be exercised anytime. If you exercise, test question, the OCC assigns exercises notices randomly. So let's go through an example. Don't tell anybody, but I didn't have $20,000. I want to buy 1,000 shares of this $20 stock, and I didn't have $20,000. I knew I was going to have 20,000. I just didn't have it at this particular time. So I thought, well, you know what? I'd like to lock in that price and purchase this later on. So I bought 10 of the 20 calls. So I established the choice to call away or buy 1,000 shares at 20. I paid $2,000 for that. When I got the $20,000, Allison, I exercised. These were October calls and I exercised in September. Test question, is Dean entitled to do that if I choose to? Absolutely, because equity options are American style. If it's European style, then it's no. I can't exercise in September. I have to wait till October.
You have to wait until you have the money.
Well, no, till the expiration. Right? We're going to contrast that.
Got it.
Now I call my broker and I say, hey, I'm exercising. My broker will contact the OCC, and the OCC assigns test question the exercise notice randomly. So they call Merrill and say, Merrill, you've been assigned an exercise notice. And Merrill says, why us? Test question. The OCC says no rhyme or reason, just happened to be you. Now, within Merrill's client base, there's probably more than one Merrill customer who is short this particular contract. So test question, how does Merrill decide which one of these customers is going to either have to deliver the stock if it's a short call, or come up with the money if it's a short put. Test question. The broker dealer can do it randomly. FIFO, first Merrill customer wrote the contract, was the first one to get exercised, or another fair method. I can't think of one, but what we can't be is discriminatory. I can't say, oh man, that's Allison. I don't want to do it to Allison. She's my good friend.
Yeah.
Or I can't say, there's Allison, got her. Right. We can't be making it up on the fly about how we're going to do this. Right. So, and then we have to tell clients how we're going to do it. And if we go to change it, we have to tell the clients how we're going to do it. Right. We can't just randomly on the fly decide how we're going to be doing it day to day. European style test question. You got to be able to contrast on the SIE American style with European style. In European style, the option contract can only be exercised by the holder on the last trading day. And that's typical of non-equity options. Where the underlying interest is in a stock, like indexes. Index options settle in cash, not delivery. That's testable. As we said, most of your questions on SIEs relates to options or recognition, flashcard stuff. But it makes sense if you think about it, Allison. If I wrote an S&P 500 index call contract, and you exercised me, and I had to come up with 100 shares of 500 stocks, nobody would play. We agree that when we're trading index options and you exercise me, all I got to do is come up with cash equal to the intrinsic value. Right? Here's another very good example of a question I pulled from the SIE exam. Boom. Right? Upon expiration, all in-the-money S&P index call options are settled by the delivery of which of the following?
Hey.
Yeah, they settle in cash. Very, very testable.
Yeah, I think I got a question just like that.
Yeah. I'm pretty spot on the SIE in terms of what people see. Yeah. All right. So if the option expiration, the option contract has no intrinsic value, option will expire worthless. Is that good news or bad news? Well, it depends. But now it doesn't depend. Because if I tell you that you were long the contract and it expired worthless, well, then you're unhappy. You're a sad camper because you lost your what?
Money.
And if you're short, then it's good news. Neener. I get to keep the money. So, one thing that's a common theme on this is that this is the max loss when you're long. And this is the max gain when you're short, regardless of whether it's a call or a put.
Okay.
Well, all right. Well, it looks like our hour is up, my friend.
Yep.
So there's our thing. And we next what we would have done is basic options trade. Oh, this is an old deck, man. It has my personal email on there. Let's get rid of that.
Yeah, quick question for you. So you'll send me you'll send me Test Geek.
I will.
And then if you have the YouTube
link for my so send you that. So action items for Dean now is the recording of this session, the Test Geek practice final, and the my final, the link to my final. Yeah, just so I can take that. And I'll take my final today. Okay, cool. Sounds like a plan. Good, okay, perfect. All right. And I'll set some time up. I'll let you know when I book another session. That's right. We'll throw it on you need it. That's right. So don't let it bother you. We'll find a spot for you for sure. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, all right. Bye-bye. Alexa, cancel.